Automation nation, automation nation, automation nation, around the nation, automation nation, automation nation, automation nation, around the nation, around the nation, around the nation. Welcome to the Automation Nation podcast, the show for business leaders, tech aficionados, and those who are just simply curious about where technology and business are going. Automation Nation is your gateway to understanding automation, AI, and the future of business. Don't get left behind. Tune in now and subscribe for more. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Automation Nation podcast. We are back again for another amazing conversation, another amazing automation conversation, that is. And I got a wonderful guest. Actually, not his first time hanging out with me and with us. And we're always interested in finding out how we can move our businesses forward with technology, innovation. And this gentleman today, Rafael Casas, is going to definitely enlighten you with some things that, first of all, you want to take notes, whether you use a pen or pencil or you use your phone. You're going to want to take some notes wherever you're watching this from right now, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or if you're listening to the podcast, I want you to go into the description. I want you to get his information. And if you're watching this live, I want you to ask questions. If you have any questions, do not be afraid to ask them. All right. Our guest today, Rafael Casas, is the Director of Strategic Alliances and Partnerships at QuickFee. All right. He has almost 20 years experience of 20 years of finance and accounting consulting experience, building products, designing and implementing complex business critical applications for small and medium-sized businesses and enterprise companies globally. This gentleman is a wealth of knowledge, and like I said, take note. And the only dumb question is the question you didn't ask that you really needed the answer to. Rafael, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Rob. So good to see you. I know we go way back, you and Wilton and the whole group there, and so it's been amazing to see your journey and growth. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, man. It's a pleasure. And thank you for that. I think that both of us, we have our mission is to educate people so that they can do better business. Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of strategy and hard work and blood, sweat, and tears that goes behind it. So looking forward to diving into deeper on some of these subjects.
Well, listen, we like to kick the show off with a question we ask all our guests. All right, this show is powered by Simply Automate. So the question is, if you could simply automate one thing in your personal life, Rafael, what would that be?
Gosh, that would actually be taking notes, and and from calls, and that actually is something that here at QuickFee we've actually used Gong to be able to do that and kind of take all the notes from all meetings we have and help summarize that. So I think that can be sometimes an issue when you're trying to take notes in an important call or something like that. But I think that was always something professionally.
I think that will save a lot of time. I think that's I think that will save a tremendous amount of time. For sure. Let's dive into our first question, man. Let's talk about your journey in finance and accounting, and what inspired you to get into this field. I mean, you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I really enjoyed studying accounting in college, and and then got really deep into and fascinated with the technology side of the house, and so I fell into that very, very quickly in my early 20s, and started my career with Sage early on in support, and worked through consulting from there, and worked through many different large organizations as well as smalls and startups throughout the last 20 years. But I've just really been fascinated and love the accounting profession, the community, and all the different technology, as well as process improvement, and just looking at these types of not just solutions, but holistic approaches to really being successful, and ultimately the people is what's kept me around.
That's good. That's good. And speaking about the people and speaking about technology, is AI here to take people's jobs? Because I know folks are running for the hills, man. They're running for the hills and they're afraid. Let's enlighten them. Is AI here to take our jobs?
No, I would say no. And there's a session that I do a lot deeper on with regards to shiny objects. This is another shiny object in a wave of many shiny objects we've seen in the last, decade or even longer. I'd say that this is just a really prime example of us getting chased out of repetitive tasks. But if anything, it's going to be helping to just augment and us being more effective, not efficient, but being more effective. And that's ultimately where you want to be. I think the big opportunity here is a couple. One, a quick mindset of most of these technologies and new apps, they kind of lead with FUD, the term FUD. So fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And first of all, just get rid of that. Don't look into this with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Look at this with as an opportunity. And the second thing I can say is that if anything, the finance and accounting profession are just going to be more valuable because of the people connection, the soft skills, and those are things that the reasoning and the nuances. Those are things that these AI tools just will not be able to handle and are not good at. That it's going to be much, much more important to be strong in those areas.
And so it looks like human intelligence with artificial intelligence just enhances our intelligence. It's not just one or the other, but it's working cohesively together. And
Yeah.
they do that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one thing I chat about. It's not that you want to partner with these technologies, and as a consultant, and what I would do with these large organizations is, the technology was the easy part. It was really partnering with these, not thinking you were going to be working against or for a technology. It's how do we partner better with the technology?
I like that. And speaking of that, let's talk about you. I'm so intrigued by this, the 5 phases of the entrepreneur's code, and I want you to kind of go into that. And this would be a good time, folks, to kind of plug in and listen in closely, because this is very fascinating. First time I heard this.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is really a way that you kind of build culture within your organization to either start a new business, start a new segment, but really ultimately a mindset of like innovation. And this is there's about 5 phases to this in this entrepreneur's code, where essentially I go deep into it in other sessions, but there's 2 lenses that you could look at this code through, a leadership lens and a consulting lens. But ultimately, the 5 phases is one, is taking stock. Taking stock is going to be, you commonly hear the term people, process, and technology is what you really want to focus on. And, once you've gone through taking stock of your business, the first thing, to me, it's a technology piece is quite the most simple piece of all 3 of them. And even the process one is that there's a lot of fundamentals that you should be following, and best practices, leading principles for processes in different departments. But I think one you really should focus on is the people. Ultimately, those are the people that are going to be helping you implement and be bought into these particular types of processes and new technologies that you want to consolidate. But it's really so much unpackaging. Like when I go into a project, when I take stock as an example, I sit down the first couple of days and just meet with the teams, and just observe and listen. Before I get into technology, I sit and listen to see how diplomatic people are with each other. How folks are bought into the business. Is there a leadership value and mission statement that everyone's feels bought into? And then the second phase into that is choosing the path of highest impact. So that could be, we are going to look at maybe refining some of the folks that we have in a specific department, looking at some, if there's something in AR and AP that could very low hanging fruit that could have a lot of impact for them in their day-to-day jobs. Where do we start to implement some of those things in small dosages, and that leads into the phase 3 of making those big small bets. You don't want to necessarily start throwing any type of technology that's piecemealed or that isn't in synergy with you growing and consolidated, because then you can certainly start to really build a Frankenstein of a system in your business that is not scalable. But so the big thing is just making those big small bets, and that's a lot of it is really having discussions and in-depth discussions with your teams and working together to make those big small bets, because you don't want to have any of these things done in a vacuum. And then phase 4 is iterating to innovate, and that's as you start to make these bets and make an impact, you always want to constantly go back to phase 1 and take stock of what you've been doing. And you want to continue to iterate. You want to continue to maintain and make these things better. Technologies and processes and leading practices can slightly change. But ultimately in phase 5, you're really building in your innovation habit and culture. So, that's the very high level, but it goes really kind of deep, because you want the top down, buy-in from partners, leadership. And then it's also extremely important to have a lot of these discussions and, from the bottom up as well, because there's so many things that leadership is probably not aware of that are, certain that the lower end staff are not just complaining about, but they're suffering. And, one small change from just that process of taking stock could really help the company move forward. But it's certainly a mindset of adaptability and being nimble and just looking at things with opportunity. I think there's just it's a lot to unpackage, but that's the high level.
Yeah, a lot to unpackage. But you talked about something very, very important, and that's the leadership component. That leadership component is imperative for the success of your company, internally and externally. And so, you've already kind of shared it within those 5, but maybe kind of go a little deeper. How do we accomplish this? I mean, how do we get the leadership and the team aligned? And I know it's a great idea, but sometimes the great idea is not always easily accomplished.
Yeah, I think from a leadership lens, like high level, you want to look at, what is the vision of the company, short term and long term, and do you have something in place like OKRs or a statement, a vision statement for your company of what you want to do, and then you have someone that accountability. Ultimately, you want to have strong accountability as a leader, and continue to really be a sponge. But from those phases is really taking the time to observe and learn. One thing that's been, I think that a lot of leaders are starting to do these days is really get into those leadership courses to help them become better leaders. I know Michael Lee from Reconcile does a really good job, helping promote those types of values. A lot of partners, they're not necessarily amazing leaders, or they haven't jumped into those types of educational courses to really elevate themselves. So I think there's a lot of different things you can be doing, but I think the biggest thing that you could do now as a leader is just sit down, observe, and listen, and understand your team, and then understand how you can all work together to kind of elevate your business. So there's a lot of areas, but standardizations, OKRs, things of that nature to really evaluate your company.
Sit down, observe, and listen. That last one is huge, because through the observation, listening is going to allow you to hear what you need to hear, and then make those particular adjustments or changes or implementations that are necessary. And are you seeing that companies and businesses are starting to come around the corner on this automation thing and starting to adopt it more easily? Because I know that it's scary, especially when you don't know what you don't know, and so a lot of people are apprehensive. But have you seen more adoption of this technology of automation in businesses?
I would say you're seeing it a lot from larger companies, and mid-size as well, that are in many respects are a bit more nimble than the larger companies, because they have, they're quite fragmented. But you do, especially in the accounting profession, you see it. There's a lot more intellectual curiosity. There's so many sharp folks. There's just a really great community. And so where it makes sense to be effective, because effective automation, you don't want to arbitrarily automate a bad process, right? So it's really also revolving around change management. A lot of change management protocols aren't really established within smaller businesses, or don't know how. I mean, there's always going to be a certain amount of disruption within an organization when you make these types of changes, and there's going to be a level of fear and risk around these things. And so, I think it's really, really important to follow some of that entrepreneurship model, to really go in cautiously and make sure that you're making those big, small bets that are going to be really low risk averse and could bring a lot of high value. So one of the areas that for me, when I would build out these modernizations and architect for these companies, is I would approach it as having a mindset of scarcity. And that means that I'm going to pretend that I don't have funds or budget to bring in new technology. I'm going to use who I have, refine what I have, and consolidate what I have. And then, if those are not going to fit my use cases from functionality or technology that I have existing at my fingertips, then I'll move to that. But I want to kind of squeeze all the juice I can of what I have. And so that just is a mindset that's going to help you, not just from a budgeting standpoint, but just trying to be resourceful. Those are really good habits to be in, trying to be really resourceful of what you have. And again, part of that stock, outside of the people, if you're looking just purely technology, how many pieces of technology do I have, and why? Who are the people that made these decisions before I did to bring these in? A lot of times you see that they're people that came to the company that are just familiar with the technology and want to keep it, although it's not the best fit for the company. But a lot of times, I just had a great conversation with a firm owner, and he has like 6 different technologies in his stack, and he wants to consolidate that to 3. So we kind of talk through his business, and I give him some pointers. And but that's those are the things that you want to do. Try to look at consolidating. That's going to be a way to scale. You don't want to. It's going to be very difficult to scale, and you see that with enterprise use cases with 6 or 7 or 8 different pieces of technology. And identifying your single source of truth, whether it be that your CRM, your ERP, your practice management solution. So
yeah. You kind of went into this already, but building that tech stack is like for example, like kind of give your advice on building this. You kind of elaborate a little bit already, but a lot of times this can be great, or it can be horrible, because like you said, you're using technology you don't need to, you're spending time you don't need to. What's the best way to assess and to approach building the tech stack that's going to be beneficial for your company?
Yeah, honestly, when I do reevaluate or doing these evaluations and the modernization of the tech stack, I'm not even looking at tech stack first. I'm looking at the people, the process that's involved, and then I'll look at the tech stack, because a lot of times I also want to understand. I really put a lot of emphasis on the people. I want to understand. I'll look at their LinkedIns. I'll look at where they've come from, so I can understand a little bit where their mindset is coming from. And I can easily tell in many cases the kind of the technologies that they're used to. And then, we'll look at, and then also it's going to help me identify why are they implementing the processes that they are. They could potentially have not have been in an organization that was using leading principles in certain processes. And then I get into the tech stack. Again, the tech stack piece is going to be the easiest part. A lot of the value comes from focusing and emphasizing a lot of time on the people and process, because you can have the greatest technology, you can have great standard operating procedures that are written in place, but if you have the people that are not bought in, they're not going to follow that. They're not going to use it as intended. You can put a lot of guardrails, a lot of things in place, But the issue is those folks, and so that's another really valuable piece. You get to then find out who are the people that should stay with the company long term, that are
Mm.
bought into this to help move forward and iterate the innovation of the technology that you're bringing in, and you really want everyone rowing in the right direction, and so that's how I approach it holistically, and the
Mhm.
technology piece is going to be the most simple piece to all this. And there's a lot of great technology. A lot of it, as well as me doing a lot of research when I'm looking at the different technologies that I want to build out that could potentially work, and that's going to be through everything from Google to Reddit to the community forums, and looking at, because most of the time, if you're looking at a sales pitch or a demo, that's not going to be always the experience from a post-sales perspective and implementation. So you want to look at all the options that could potentially weigh out your decision, because it is a financial decision that could be long term. So you often find people will implement something that everyone's been raving about for FOMO, and then they get in there and it just does not work for them because they didn't do enough due diligence, or they didn't get enough references, and then they have to spend a lot of money on moving to something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like it always starts with your people first, getting an understanding of who you have on board, and then taking a look at assessing what your actual goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, taking note and inventory of what your current technologies are, and then mapping that to what your actual goals are. And then you said from there, you begin to see the people as well, who's really has the value for what you're trying to accomplish. But you have to do it strategically.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not, this is a very drawn out process. It takes a long time to do it. I've worked with some not so great teams and some phenomenal teams. As clients that have internal teams that we're modernizing their whole tech stacks for. And even those exceptional teams, there's still roadblocks. You have to be adaptable. It's that quote you often hear of "go with the flow." It really is the opposite of that, of flowing with the go, because things are going to be constantly changing. And so you just have to really work as a team to be able to do that. And even the best teams come across barriers and roadblocks constantly, but the best teams, though, are looking for ways to be positive and find solutions around that. Find solutions that make sense, not just a solution to just have a solution as a band-aid, but solutions that make sense long term and are aligned. That's why those innovation committees are really important as well. As you get larger, it's quite difficult sometimes when you're smaller, but usually in those innovation committees, you have leadership or department heads that are not bringing to the table points of innovation with respect to, in a vacuum of just from their own experience, but they have to be really going deep in the weeds with their team and get input from their team. And so that's usually the way that works well. But if you start getting people in those committees that are just saying what they personally want as opposed to what the team is struggling with, that just defeats that purpose.
Yeah, it certainly does. And that kind of goes along with the mindset approach to automation implementation. It kind of goes to that. It's not necessarily just about what you're thinking. It's almost like when you're building a product. If you're building a product based off what you want or what you desire or what you think people want, as opposed to what's actually needed, And so, but the mindset for that, are there any tricks or hacks that we can do that help people get their mindset ready to approach this mountain?
I think that something that I brought up earlier, that term, fear, uncertainty, and doubt is just getting that thrown out the window. You should have some sort of skepticism and being cautious. You should always have that, because again, you're looking at that shiny object or that shiny new tech that comes out, but until you get your hands on it and you're working on it with not demo data, but a real client, then you understand what it can and really can't do for you. And so those are steps you can do of really kind of diving in deep in investing in some time for any technology that you're really trying to bring on board. But also the mindset is that again, get rid of that fear, uncertainty, doubt. But really, this is all opportunity. When I approach these new technologies and in this mindset, again, I'm looking at it from a scarcity mindset. I'm not trying to pretend that I've got unlimited funds. I'm just going to bring in 5 different apps to do that all overlap each other, in process and automation. But I'm ultimately looking at, when I have these discussions with certain department heads and certain teams, I'm looking at, I always ask them a question like, if you could automate one thing today, or what would make your life easier? Not even automating, what would be one thing that would make your life easier? Like, well, I just want this report so I have visibility better. It seems like this data is an issue, and so it could not be something that's extremely innovative or automating. It could be just something that gives them more visibility. So you have to not think of it in the sense of it's just something. In a first phase, it's automation. It can be other things that are going to really help them be more effective. But a lot of times I look at, if I'm going deeper in the weeds, the first thing I look at from a technology standpoint is I look at what's the quote unquote single source of truth for this business. And then I look at all the master data, that's going to be customer data, employee data, the vendor data. And that tells me a story of how this data is coming in, all the different, integrations that's bringing in unstructured or non-standardized data. Who's making the decisions? Is it the CMO that's going rogue and everyone else is going rogue because of that? So so that actually gives me a really good indication on where things are going amiss.
I like that. We got a question in from Matt. I'm a self-taught RPA tools like automation anywhere in Power Automate, but have either of you heard of Postman, the API testing tool?
Yeah, Postman's great. A lot of developers use Postman. It's really great to test. So that's certainly one that you would take a look at. I think that's widely used from a lot of developers that I've worked with. So
okay.
So yeah, and a lot of these, some of the areas too, as well, that's a great point of looking at the APIs that exist for a specific tech stack that you want to build out. Again, RPA is a great tool. You've got intelligent automation, which is basically AI building bots based off of additional mining of processes that could potentially need a bot for that. So, but again, before you start doing those types of things, you want to refine. So let's say you look at a use case, it's 20 steps. Before I try to automate something like that, how can I make that 5 steps? And then if it's 5 and it's agreed upon and it's working well, and changing up your business process, then maybe if there's an opportunity to automate that, how do we automate that with workflows and within the system that you have?
You and Nicole Davis said the exact same thing. So you said that exact same phrase, taking it from building from a whole bunch of activity to even less activity to even less activity. And how do we do that? We do that through streamlining. That's good. Great minds think alike. Well, where do you see the future of finance and accounting technology headed in the next 5 years? This is the big one here.
This is tough. I think it's just going to be continuous intellectual curiosity and continuous the community continuing to adopt new technology ways, because I don't, Gen AI is not going to be the only new wave that we see in the next 5 years. There's going to be probably different types of technologies that we'll see come into place. But I think for me, in my opinion, the next 5 years with regards to AI is going to be a lot around data integrity. Having data integrity around all the single source of truth platforms that you're working in. But I also think the biggest thing for me is going to be the soft skills in the people management and the relationship piece, which is going to be the most crucial part. When I just recently, myself and Blake Oliver were doing a panel for the faculty of for a college in NYU and in New York. It was a Lehman College with Dr. Sean Steinsmith, and they were asking us, as far as building some AI type of courses out, would it be beneficial to have, a course on ChatGPT, building out communications and things like that for you. And I explained, and I just expressed the importance of, you would use that as an opportunity, as a tool, but not as a crutch. The real advantage is going to be spending a lot of time on honing and building and upskilling the personal soft skills, being able to have those conversations. And that's just, from an interpersonal relationship within your own teams, collaborating well, and especially with your clients. Because again, those are pitfalls. Those are things that these technologies just will not help. And even the best technologies still have a level of audit. You can't, if you look at an automation job, it could break because a field has changed. And you have to have audit. You have to be continuously checking these things out. None of it's foolproof. It never will be. And so I think those are going to be areas where the profession will just continue to advance in.
That's good. That's good. As we're coming in for a landing here, we have now this is like singing to the choir director, of course, but we always ask this question: if you could, here we go right here. If you could simply automate one thing in your business life now, with a magic wand right now, if you could think about something in your business life that you could automate, Rafael, what would that be?
Man, that's a tough one. What would I automate in my life? Gosh. I guess you could automate the fact that everyone would have the most amazing critical thinking skills. So, but I think, there's so much, thankfully, that's been being automated. If you look, that's one of the beauties of it. You look at things like Copilot, and you look at things of the GPTs and things like that. Those are actually helping a lot with business automation from low hanging fruit. So, but yeah, I think that's the one thing that I would
automating critical
say.
thinking skills. Automating critical thinking skills. That's a hands down number one answer right there, I'm sure. All right, let's give us your best piece of business advice, or one of your favorite quotes from you.
There's quite a few. One thing I would just say is to really investing in your people. People have emotional investments and old habits, softwares, and workflows. So really investing in getting to know them, that you're really bought in to partner with them and build, build something great, and something that is going to have a great culture, that other, organizations want to partner with, as well as new individuals coming out of college that are going to be excited about. Those are all pluses that come out of doing those, investing in those types of things. And I think, as well as, it's always really good to just have that intellectual curiosity and do a lot of studying on your own. Really don't take anyone's word for it. I would just don't take anyone's word for it. Just do a lot of studying on your own. There's a common term that I'd say all the time, but in any of these industries, there's a lot of expert swimmers that have never been in a pool. So they're trying to sell you this, that, ABC, and they've never actually gone through the heartache of doing these types of things in a business or a firm. And so that's why it's really important to take it upon yourself to spend time and do the research. And those are all going to be really important factors into making sure that you're long-term set, and that you're long-term able to constantly iterate.
Ooh, I like that. That's good. Good. Great advice from a star player. See a star player jersey behind him too, folks. If you're watching this, that's a star player insight right there. Appreciate that. What's the best way for folks to get in contact with you and find out what you're doing and get more education?
You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Just easy with my name here, and then my email. I'm here at QuickFee, more than happy to help out. We can help support you on the AR side of the house of accelerating and automating there. Rafael.Casas@quickfee.com. more than happy to help, support, and just help the profession any way I can.
That's good stuff. And you and guys and gals, you can find Rafael's information in the comments wherever you are, and you can also find it in the description if you're listening to the podcast. Definitely connect with him, Rafael, and I'm looking forward to another conversation. We're going to be having a roundtable coming up soon, guys. We're going to have a roundtable with some other individuals involved in this, and we're going to just keep these automation conversations going, my friend.
Looking forward to it. I really appreciate you having me on, Rob. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. And thank you for tuning in to the Automation Nation podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time. Well, until next time, and until the beat drops, we're going to keep on talking. And so sometimes with technology, it doesn't go the way you want it to go. So it looks like it doesn't want to give me the outro song. So we're just going to say bye-bye for now. And remember, the only dumb question, ladies and gentlemen, is the question you didn't ask. So make sure you ask questions. Get feedback.